Welcome back to Closer Look on this Monday, July the 28th with Michael Friscolanti. I'm Scott Sexsmith. Hope you had a great weekend. I know that I did.
Yes, I did not. I know I was thinking of you while we were watching those baseball games. They're pretty ugly.
Here's two numbers you need to know. 27 and 17.
What's that?
Jays had 27 runs. Tigers had 17 over the course of four games.
Yeah, and we scored a whole bunch of them in the last inning of the last game. Yeah, it was pretty good. I have to say, I don't usually watch the Jays on their network because I have the MLB app, so I watch the Tigers games on the app. But because there's a local blackout, I had to watch the games on Sportsnet, which I haven't watched a single game on Sportsnet. And it was... You know, I try to downplay the Blue Jays hype, but man, after they won the game on Thursday night, the Sportsnet guys were like, "Hey, you just watched the best team in baseball," and they
crazy.
They are, you know. Again, it's not personal. I just don't like the Blue Jays.
I know.
But I have to say they are super talented. There's something special. It was like the Tigers team last year that made that run at the end. They just have some magic on. You can't really explain it because it's not all just Guerrero and Bichette.
No, it's not.
It is
the bottom half of the
whole
order
lineup.
for sure. Yeah.
They play great defense. Their pitching is strong. Their bullpen was strong. They have a couple like even Max Scherzer yesterday. You know,
went 7 innings.
41 years old, and he pitched a gem, former Tiger. But I think we are going to have. I think we're on a collision course. I think the Tigers and the Jays. And did you see the atmosphere at the park there? A lot of Blue Jays fans, I hope, listen to the show.
Yeah.
It was packed with Jays fans. There was points in the game in Detroit where they were saying, "Okay, Blue Jays."
You're kidding.
They were chanting that.
I missed that.
It was a great atmosphere, a great ride. And that reminds you what a great rivalry that was.
Yes.
In the 80s.
In the 80s.
Oh, my. That was.
Nothing like it.
They were both in the AL East at the time. It was an amazing rivalry. And geographically as well, a couple hours down the road. So as much as it was a difficult series for my team to watch, I think I would love a Tigers-Jays.
It just
can you
might
imagine
happen.
a Tigers-Jays American League championship?
Crazy.
Be phenomenal.
So you've still got an 8-game lead in the Central.
Yes.
And we've got a 5.5-game lead over the Yankees in the East.
We're officially at the I and we stage. That's the best thing about sports, eh?
It's like we own the teams.
Yep. Speaking of ownership of teams, people love their World Cup teams as well, right?
I did not know this. I always thought that the Olympics was the biggst sporting event in the world, but it's the FIFA World Cup.
It's rabid. The World Cup, people are insane about it. Obviously, there's a lot of Italian friends from Italian Canadians, and they go nuts for the World Cup. Although I don't know if Italy's even going to make the World Cup. They haven't made the last couple World Cups.
That's true.
Yeah, but it's a great thing. You see that around the country, right? There's so many different cultures and nationalities around Canada. So when the World Cup comes around, it's great to see all the different pockets come together.
But this event is taking on a whole different meaning.
I would say there's some concern around what's going on. Right? Because just to refresh people's memories, I had to remember what year it was. But in 2018, they applied a joint application for the U.S., Canada, and Mexico, sort of North America, to host the World Cup, and they were given it. So that was, 7 years ago?
Times were a little different.
Yeah, a little different. A lot has changed. So now we're a year away from the World Cup. We're in the middle of the worst period of Canada-U.S. relations in memory.
Yeah.
We have a president who's threatening to annex the country. We have a trade war, a big deadline coming up this week. There's not a lot of friendship going on.
No, not to mention his immigration policies.
Absolutely.
And that whole impact.
Right. So you wonder, people are going to be worried about, am I even going to be safe to go cheer for my team?
Or will I go to jail?
Yeah, exactly. But there's a lot of...
And that's a possibility.
There's got a lot of travel bans in place, a lot of crackdowns on immigration and getting visas into the country. So there's a kind of a lot at play. But I think what fascinates me the most is just trying to imagine the behind the scenes. Because there's a group of people...
Sitting in a room
who work on this is their project, right? And they probably all care deeply about each other because they've been working on this for a long time, right? And they're looking at the headlines going, "Oh my Lord, what are we going to do here? This is insane, right?" There's no camaraderie at all between the countries right now. And so we've got a period where we're a year out from this huge, massive world event, like you said, the biggest sporting event in the world. And I feel like it can either go really bad or really good, because that's the magic of sports, right? Sports can sometimes transcend all these things and make us feel better about how things are going and sort of bring people together, and you hope that's the case. But we're going to have a great conversation about that today.
Yes, we are, with Tim Elcombe, who's a professor at Wilfrid Laurier University. Canada is co-hosting one of the world's biggest sporting events, the 2026 World Cup, co-hosting with a country whose president has instigated a trade war and threatened annexation. To talk about what all of that means, we're joined by Tim Elcombe, a professor at Wilfrid Laurier. Tim, good to see you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
All right, the next World Cup is about a year away, co-hosted by the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. Now, considering all that's happened since Donald Trump was reelected, I think it's fair to say that the whole event is starting to feel a wee bit awkward.
It certainly is changing, maybe than what we anticipated when this was awarded in 2018. I think one of the key things is the World Cup hadn't been in a Western country since 2006. It went to South Africa, Brazil, Russia, and Qatar. And certainly with Russia and Qatar, it was very politically charged events. And I think there was a sense of, in addition to returning it to the West, I think there was also this idea that this would also maybe be a calming of the political waters in 2018. And I think we're not heading in that direction at all.
Yeah, exactly. So much for that. No one could have foreseen what could happen. What does it mean? I mean, obviously we're talking about a lot of the specific issues, but just the fact that the World Cup is in a country where there is some political controversy going on, how does that actually change the event? Does the average fan may not pay attention to that, but it means something?
Yeah, I mean, every single World Cup has had its political elements to it. I mean, go back to the 1930s and you had Mussolini, deeply involved in this. So I think the politicization of the event's not new. I think what we're seeing now is how more overt it is, how more in your face the politics are. And I think what FIFA has always been able to do, and I would also pair this with the Olympics, is for a long time they were almost able to create a bubble within these countries where it was more FIFA world or the Olympics world where the politics were theirs more than the host countries, and they were just the physical space and they could bring in all the tourists, that type of thing. But in the end, everything was kind of manipulated and controlled. I think we've seen Russia, a little bit of that, Qatar, certainly more of that. And I think that's one of the big questions as we head into 2026 is how much influence will FIFA have on controlling the political environment that, considering sort of what's happening with, politics in North America.
Yeah, let's talk about that, Tim. I can only imagine some of the conversations behind the scenes between Canadian and American organizers. They're planning this huge event, and now there's a major trade war and a U.S. president threatening annexation. Your thoughts and comments on that?
Yeah, there's so many things I think that are going to be up for debate, and just to quickly list some things. On the tournament side, the logistics. Typically, this is a semi-randomized tournament site. I mean, you get ranked as in your pots, but basically you get drawn. You play where you're selected to play. Well, are they going to be able to just have any country play in Canada, United States, or Mexico? Are they going to have to maybe have more of a manipulation of who plays where? Questions about, so there's all sorts of logistical questions of how the tournament itself will be run. There's going to be questions certainly about the ability of people to cross the border, to how many tourists are going to want to come if they can only go to Canada, only go to Mexico. Maybe some concerns about being in the United States that weren't there. I think there's questions about, there's going to be protests. There's going to be political protests. They could happen on the field. They could happen outside the stadiums. They could happen just in, city squares. There's going to be protests. How is that going to be managed? There's going to be questions about the identity, the image, the lasting impression, the list of things that we could explore from an international political sporting realm. I think it's unending.
For sure. And the first one on your list is really fascinating, right? Because you think of the organizers planning the schedule, right? And they're thinking, well, maybe this country and their players, and there's some issues with the Trump administration, maybe we shouldn't host this game in the States. Or that's what you're thinking of, right, Professor? Is that, because, they might be saying maybe if we end up in the United States, we're going to have immigration problems. There could be all kinds of things.
Yeah. Now, based on the FIFA protocols, I don't think they can do anything to manipulate it.
We're talking about FIFA, Professor.
So I don't know if that will but it could be, for example, let's say, for example, one of the countries on the banned list qualifies and they are selected and they just randomly get drawn and they're going to be playing in the United States. Now there are exceptions that have been granted to this point for the athletes, the staff, and family members, but there are going to be absolutely no tourists, no people from those countries permitted into the United States. So do you switch that and they play in Canada? Do you switch that and they play in Mexico? Will FIFA have to change its policy, or is there something? So again, these are logistical questions, I think, from on the sport organization standpoint, are just, again, there's just limitless in terms of the challenges and the complexities that we're going to see. Whether or not they can do anything about it, I don't know.
Tim, let's build on that for a sec. What is FIFA's position? Have they spoken out at all on any of this?
FIFA is a entirely apolitical organization, has nothing to do with politics at all. Will be what you will hear. I call this the sporting exceptionalism view of sport. And again, I think it's shared by FIFA and the IOC. And sort of to try to summarize that, it's the idea that their view of FIFA and their World Cup is that we are apolitical. We stay out of the political fray. But if you allow us to stay out of the political fray, the wonders of the World Cup and the wonders of the global game will actually have a positive effect on the world. And so it's this one way sort of, keep us out of the politics and we will make the world a better place sort of mentality. So I think FIFA will take that stand. I mean, FIFA was very reluctant, for example, to step in and, ban Russia from competition. Like, they do not want to get involved in those things, and they want to stay out of it. And certainly if you think about the president, Gianni Infantino, he has, for example, he became the great defender of Qatar during the 2022 World Cup, right? He was prominent, in Russia in 2018, making sure that he was, had a very strong relationship with Vladimir Putin. And we certainly know he has an extremely close relationship with President Trump. He's been in the Oval Office many times. He's been at his inauguration. He actually skipped some FIFA meetings to be part of a trade mission to Saudi Arabia with President Trump. So there's a real relationship there from the political standpoint. But again, the idea is that keep us out of the fray, and we will make this world a better place. We'll bring the world together.
Speaking of bring people together, is there any chance that as these games, the World Cup approaches, that it could actually help our relationship with the United States, that maybe we'll actually come together and say, let's be friends, because we have this massive event that the whole world, and literally, the one event the whole world watches.
That's the ideal here, is that you have this unified North American event and the world comes to North America. It's not supposed to be a U.S. event. I mean, if you pay attention to the global discussion about it, they always refer to it as the U.S.'s World Cup. I mean, they really do. I mean, this is a very U.S. American-centric event. I think it would be lovely and it'd be great. Again, I think this is a key role that maybe Gianni Infantino can play, is that relationship with President Trump one way or two way? Can he influence him in any way to maybe step back from this purely America First agenda that is part of their global strategy, international affairs, economics? And can he sort of convince him to, at least to some degree, view this as a shared competition? My concern is it was always going to be American-centric. You can see that in terms of how the games have been divvied up, right? When the games are in Canada and Mexico, it's round robin games, and one round of 16 in Vancouver. President Infantino has certainly built a strong relationship with President Trump. I'm not sure he's reached out to Prime Minister Carney right? So I'm not sure that same relationship has been built. And so I think in the end, it feels like we're heading towards an American event where Canada and Mexico are bit players. And I think ideally, if we could sort of at least have some sense in which, hey, this was our World Cup too, I think that would be a great benefit. And you're right, it could lead to discussion, opening up things. But because the structure of the tournament is the U.S. has all the quarterfinals, semifinals, finals. The world's talking about this being the Americans' tournament. Yes. I'm not sure what they need to do to give us things. So I think that's the problem when it comes to sort of talking about how might this be leveraged from a Canadian perspective. Yeah.
President Trump surely likes the spotlight as well, right? So when the whole world is watching, you kind of hope that it's an opportunity for him to not get petty and be cracking down on countries who have travel bans or detaining a whole bunch of fans. We hope that's the case.
Well, certainly sport has been a part of his. I mean, in his first presidency, college football, and just even during the coronavirus, he was pushing for college football to become back. He was, during the whole Colin Kaepernick taking the knee. I mean, he was very invested in sport, and he always has been. And we even saw just a few weeks ago, the conclusion of the Club World Cup, right? He was very prominent in the trophy celebration, and so the president is sport is an important part of his sort of image building. Yeah. And I think the World Cup, I mean, you can go two directions with this. Like, how interested is the American public and the American administration in welcoming the world right now? At the other side of it is welcoming the world to showcase the United States is potentially very appealing. And so I think there are different directions this could go. And the U.S. administration, I think, could go in different directions in terms of how they treat it.
I just hope he invites the winner for McDonald's at the White House like he did with the college football team. Anyways, go ahead, Scott.
Tim, let's talk about some positive stuff here for a second. Canada could see somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 million international visitors during the tournament between June the 11th and July the 19th. What's the economic spin-off of that? How important is that?
Well, the economics of sport is, again, I'm not a sport economist, but the economics of sport and mega events is one of the most fascinating, complex fields of study. One person could, estimate, make an estimate in which there'll be billions of dollars of tourism money that flows in, and you'll have a different economist suggest that this money is fleeting and it's not. So I think the economic spin-off of these things is incredibly difficult to measure. Certainly the World Cup is the single biggest sporting event in the world. I mean, it eclipses the Olympics. And I think, in 2018, when we were co-host of the World Cup, I think part of the idea was, this is incredible image building. This is sort of the world coming to Canada. There's the economic spinoff. I mean, there's the building of Canada soccer. There's, endless list of all these things that we're going to get from this. My concern is, again, I think the way the tournament has been structured, even sort of forgetting sort of what's happened in sort of the last 6 months in terms of the American administration, I think just the whole idea that in the end, it's 2 Canadian cities that are hosting events. Those events are going to be 13 out of over 100 matches are in Canada. And I think now the idea that people might travel to Canada for, the group stage, and then they would travel to the United States for the next stage. Those are the big questions. So I think those are all intertwined to the question of, so how much, there's absolutely going to be a tourism bump. Unquestioned. Will it be what they anticipated? And how do you measure that, and how do you determine that is going to be extremely challenging and difficult.
Are you going to go to a game, Tim?
I'd love to, but I'm not sure how you get a ticket.
Tim, before we let you go, anything else we didn't cover that you'd like to bring up today?
Again, I think it's going to be a fascinating year in terms of the buildup of this. Whether you're looking at it through a sport lens, whether you're looking at it through a political lens, an economic lens, Canada-U.S. relations, Canada-global relations. I think, and this is sort of the thing that interests me the most professionally, is how intertwined sport is with all of these factors. And, on one level, it's a game, and we can get lost in it. We want, Canada to do well. But at the same time, we're talking about the highest levels of international affairs here are going to be happening through this tournament. And I just think it's going to be a really fascinating year plus to sort of see how this all pans out.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point, Professor.
All right, there's Tim Elcombe, the professor at Wilfrid Laurier. Tim, good to see you. Thanks for joining us tonight on the show. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Should have mentioned off the top, Tim from Wilfrid Laurier University, whose areas of expertise include sports, politics, and international affairs. So an absolute perfect fit to have this conversation.
Yeah, professor of the Department of Kinesiology and Phys Ed, and he's also a fellow at the Balsillie School of International
Real
Affairs.
Underachiever.
Yeah,
so parents must be
I'm
so
glad we waited
disappointed.
till the end to really show that this guy knew what he was talking about.
Right.
But Tim was a great conversation. And, I also wonder sometimes if anyone's really going to care. Because by the time the tournament comes around, it's all soccer. People are going to be talking about the soccer games.
Yeah.
But, it's sad. Like, this could be a great opportunity. If some fans are fearful of traveling, which is the great tradition of the World Cup, is fans traveling around the world to watch their teams. If there's a bunch of fans that are like, you know what, I'm a little too nervous to go. We feel that right now, just crossing the border down the street to head over to the United States. So, yeah, and I imagine you'd have to start booking your travel by now, right?
If you haven't already.
Yeah, if you haven't already. So it'd be interesting to see if there's some data out there later that kind of shows what the numbers are going to be.
And we're still 11 months away.
Yeah.
So much could change between now and then.
Yeah, and we still don't know, obviously, because there's still some qualifiers going on, like who's playing where, what the groups are, what team could be playing in Vancouver in a quarterfinal. That's, those kind of things. Are you going to try to go to the World Cup?
You know what? I'm a sports fanatic, as you know. Soccer does nothing for me.
Even at the highest levels?
Even at the highest levels.
It's pretty.
I find it very long, and I find it boring. But of course, people say that about golf,
baseball
right?
and golf. I know.
I know.
I think the same is true for all those sports. Is that when you actually take a minute to pay attention to the skill level on these guys and what they're doing. You like golfers, it looks so easy on TV. It's the hardest freaking thing to do in the world. Sure. And baseball, people say baseball. I think baseball is the most exciting thing on the planet. I love baseball, the drama of every pitch. But soccer, when you watch the skill level and the way those guys can pass the puck and the endurance, like they're running up and down that field. That's they're running a lot of miles.
The shape you got to be in?
Yeah, they're in the shape. And just I think the way they thread the needle and the way they can pass the ball and move it around is pretty phenomenal. And I might not necessarily watch a regular season Champions League game or whatever it is, but I would definitely watch a World Cup game.
Yeah. I mean, you always hop on the bandwagon, right, with a big event like that. Check it out.
And Canada, I assume, is in the World Cup if we're hosting, right?
Is that part of the gig? If you're hosting, you automatically – it's like Memorial Cup,
We'll let you know tomorrow. I don't know. Is that true, Derek?
I don't know.
All right.
If you know the answer, email us at.
Closer look at villagemedia.ca, where later on this week, Steve Paikin from the Paikin Podcast will join us, and Friday night on the show, Ontario Liberal leader Bonnie Crombie. So it's going to be a good week. Closer look at villagemedia.ca. Thanks for watching this evening on this Monday. For Michael Friscolanti, I'm Scott Sexsmith. We'll see you tomorrow night at 7 right here on Closer Look.
Frisco and Scott's Wardrobe provided in part by Moores, Sault Ste. Marie.